for this study area. And so when we talk about, when I say streetscape, what I mean is what transportation components make up the public street space, the streets and sidewalks, or the travel lanes, the sidewalks, bike lanes, planting areas, stormwater devices, all of that stuff that begins when private property ends is public property, and that's the street. And so we're looking first at Lake Wheeler Road, and here it is north to south. And so the streetscape project for Lake Wheeler Road extends from Maywood Avenue to South Saunders Street. You can see Fuller Heights over here on the right-hand side of the park, right-hand side of the screen, and then Dix Park on the left-hand side. We have the farmer's market down here. You see South Saunders and the cemetery up here, and this is the Maywood Avenue corridor. So in a second, we're going to look at what the redesign of the street will look like based on the feedback we received from the public in previous rounds of engagement. But another thing we're going to add and talk about is, in addition to the streetscape planning and some street design for roundabouts at 3 locations along Lake Wheeler Road, one at Hammell Drive, one at Dal Adams Street, and one at Mercury Street. These aren't designed yet, so we don't have renderings like we do for the streetscape plan, but they will just be roundabout intersection treatments when the street is designed and built in the future. And so here they are again, looking at the map. One at Hammell Drive. Hammell is also a custom streetscape we'll be looking at. One here at Dal Adams and one on Mercury Street. So I'm going to click through a couple of images that shows what Lake Wheeler looks like today. And so here we are at Maywood, heading north towards town. You can see the railroad tracks up here. So we'll go a little farther up, Dix Park on the left and Fuller Heights on the right. You can see it's just 2 travel lanes for cars. There are no sidewalks or any other transportation components to the street today. A little farther down the park. And here it is in a kind of design view. So this is what the street is built out today. So there's 2 travel lanes for cars, 1 for each direction, and they're 10 feet wide. But the overall public space that those 2 lanes are contained in is actually 55 feet wide. And so on this right-hand side, there's, a few feet over here in front of these properties where this line comes to, and then there's a lot on the park side. So there you are, 10 feet on either side, a total of 55 feet wide. And so based on the survey responses we had from the previous round of engagement, this is what the preferred design option is. So on the right-hand side, over on the Fuller Heights side, we're proposing a 6-foot planting strip and a 6-foot sidewalk. And to do these improvements on the Fuller Heights side of the street does not require any additional property from those property owners on that side. So everything else you see, this expansion is all coming out of the park side. So this will be built in existing public right of way, and essentially all of this is shifted over to public property that the city already owns. So there's a 10-foot sidewalk closest to the park, and then a 12-foot bidirectional bike lane. And so there'll be lanes in this 12 feet for both directions of bicycle travel. We have a 10-foot planting area between the sidewalk and the bike lane, or planting or gathering. There can be benches and other types of things in that area, just more common public open space and on the park side. A 6-foot planting strip between the bikeway and the vehicle travel lanes that can accommodate a street light, and this floating tree should be down here. And then a median that will vary in width. That median can contain stormwater devices, and it will vary in width because of the placement and design of roundabouts along the streetscape. So it's not needed the entire length for turn lanes. There will be roundabouts to facilitate those left turns along the way. 2 11-foot travel lanes for cars, and the overall width varies because the median is kind of a variable width throughout. A really important thing to note about this design is that there's no expansion of street or roadway into the private property on the Fuller Heights side of the park. This can fit all by expanding our right-of-way on the park side and leaving those properties intact on the Fuller Heights side. And so here's a really nice perspective of what that could look like if you're walking or riding your bike or driving down the street. And so we'll see on the Fuller Heights side, a sidewalk and planting strip with trees and landscaping, some pedestrian crosswalks that could occur along the way, green stormwater infrastructure here in the center of the street, and then these other streetscape components on the park side. So this is where Dix Park will be or is. We have a sidewalk, that additional 10 feet of public space or planted landscaped area, a 12-foot bicycle lane, and then a planting strip. And so we're really excited tonight to introduce you to two of our colleagues who will take the recommendations for this streetscape and take it into the design phase and ultimately construction. So there's a really high likelihood that this street will be built and funded by public money. At previous transportation meetings, we talked about how streets get built sometimes by public money and how streets sometimes get built by private development. And what we anticipate here is a public project. And I want to introduce Brian Rothroffy and Fontaine Burris in our transportation group. Brian, if you can unmute and take us through these next few slides.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Sarah, for having me today. We're excited about the Lake Wheeler Road Improvement Project coming up. As kind of Matt showed earlier, this slide here is essentially just the existing conditions. You can see very thin roadway, no sidewalks, no bike movements. And I said the condition of the road itself has seen some better days. Next slide. And so my name is Brian Rothroffy. I will be the project manager. I work in the engineering services department under the roadway design and construction department. Tiffany is unable to make it tonight, but she is our communications specialist. As this project moves forward, you'll be seeing a lot of me and Tiffany. And then Fontaine is here tonight. She's with the Department of Transportation. I don't know if she wants to introduce herself.
Fontaine Burris. I'm a transportation planner in the transportation department. I'll be working with Brian mainly on the pre-design portion, so figuring out those intersection treatments. And then we also have Rob Murray, who, like Tiffany, is one of our communication specialists. So as I mentioned, my role is going to be really looking at that pre-design, which is going to be mainly focused on narrowing down those intersection treatments. So like Matt mentioned, there has been some conversation about roundabouts at some of the intersections. We're going to be looking at those as well as all the intersections within the corridor to make sure that we're selecting ones that best fit the needs of each intersection and take into account pedestrian safety, turning movement, and other factors like land use, so that the intersections work for the corridor. Once we're done with that, we'll be handing the project off to Brian, who's going to take it into full design. And I will mention that part of that pre-design will be coming back to the public later this fall to share what we're thinking in terms of those intersection treatments and to get the public feedback.
Thanks, Fontaine. So as soon as the pre-design is over, they'll move into more full design stage. So we'll have the custom streetscape plan that time. We'll have the intersection treatments. And that's when myself and my team will get into the more detailed drawings, the more plans, for the roadway itself. This includes all the surveying, all utility coordination, both our public utilities such as water and sewer, as well as all of Duke's and gas and charter, all the telecommunications utilities that are due line that corridor. Given the project will be widening and have a bit of improvement, there will be a lot of close coordination with utilities, as well as other developments in the area. This will also include a lot of work in grading, looking at our new vertical alignments and profiles, include stormwater, working with Duke with lighting. Matt did mention the right-of-way. So the plan is to stay within the right-of-way on the Fuller Heights side. I will mention though, we might need to get easements or whatever just to tie back in, even though the actual right-of-way improvements should be on the right-of-way. It's kind of hard, you might have to tie back into people's yards and whatnot, either if it's a wall or slope easements. And then we do have another public touch point, probably looking at the middle of next year once we actually get the design up and running. Next slide. So like I said, this is the brief kind of schedule. So Fontaine will be working on those intersection treatments, and there'll be a pre-design touch point this fall. Later this fall, we were expecting the Dix Edge Study to have a city council review of the custom streetscape where that might be adopted. The engineering will actually advertise for a design consultant later this fall. That's where we get a contractor consultant on board to help with the design and all the coordination efforts. We're expecting early next year, we'll actually award that contract. We'll have about 4 to 6 months to actually get the early design up to 25% underway. And that's when we're coming back to the public in mid-summer 2022 for a new design touch point to get really into the more details of that design. And then as of right now, construction is a to be determined. There is not a specific time frame when that might take place. And then like I said,
I do just want to add with that last point with the construction. I think it's important to note that currently the project is funded through design. There's not funding allocated for construction at the moment, but that is something that we're going to be looking for and working on as we're working on design and hope to find construction funding.
thanks, Fontaine. And then, as of right now, that's kind of where we're at as far as the next phase of the Lake Wheeler Road Improvement Project. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or Fontaine moving forward.
Oh, we did get a question on Facebook about Lake Wheeler Road that said, so it's still just 2 lanes.
Yes.
I just wanted to, I figured we'd say it out loud for the sake of recording, and I can also answer on the Facebook, but.
Yes, it still will be 2 lanes. That is consistent with the Raleigh Street Plan, which does designate Lake Wheeler long-term as a 2-lane road.
Okay. We got a poll. Sarah? So Sarah's going to bring up a poll question for you. You should see it. Hopefully it popped up on your screen. It's a pretty straightforward question. Only 2 options. It says, do you feel that the Lake Wheeler Road streetscape supports the community's vision for the Dix Edge area? So if you could go ahead and respond to that, that would be great. So right now we got 8 out of 14 folks, 10.
We'll give it another a couple seconds or so, and we'll hit end. And again, the polls are anonymous, so we don't know who says what. We just want to make sure we're getting engaged. And if the folks that said no would like to share later, we'd love to hear from you. No obligation, but we just want to understand how we can do better work to meet what your needs are. So I will hit end poll and show the results.
All right, there we go. So 10 of 12 people who took the poll answered yes. All right, thanks for that feedback. So the next streetscape project and design of the Dix Edge study is a section of South Saunders Street. And here it is. So here we are again looking at, this is South Saunders in the middle of the screen. You can see Fuller Heights in the upper left-hand corner, and then beyond that, across Lake Wheeler, that's Dix Park. And you see Summit and Maywood Avenue crossing over. This is the Carolee neighborhood, and then Gilbert Avenue here. And so the proposed streetscape design is from Penmark to Prospect Avenue. There are other planned streetscape improvements in this section. North of what we're going to look at here in a minute from a Southern Gateway study that was done previously. So there's already some design work that's happened there. And then the southern piece on the bottom of the screen is adjacent to an approved, or rather a development proposal downtown South. And so they have existing streetscape requirements that they're locked into based on some recent submittals that they've made. And so it will complement the streetscape on both ends that we're proposing here, but this section will just be a little different than what they're building south and north of this area. And so this is what South Saunders looks like today. This is heading north. This is Gilbert Avenue right here on the right-hand side. You see there's 3 vehicle travel lanes and a sidewalk. Now we're looking south, down South Saunders as well. This is the intersection at Prospect Avenue, or Prospect, yeah, Prospect. And this is what it looks like in this kind of this design view. So in each direction, there are 3 13-foot vehicle travel lanes today. There is a 5-foot sidewalk on either side, and then 5 and 3-foot planting strips on either side of that sidewalk. And there's a 17-foot wide median. So altogether, there's some variability of about 2 feet, 120 feet wide end to end. And the preferred option from our previous round of engagement increases that sidewalk width on each side to 6 feet. It also adds a protected and elevated bicycle lane, so that on either side of the road, and that would be above the curb and separated from vehicle and pedestrian traffic with 4 and 3-foot planting strips and some room for landscaping, and then additional planting strip on the other side of that sidewalk. Another key change to the streetscape design on South Saunders, if you remember from the previous slide, the existing width of each of these vehicle travel lanes is 13 feet, so 2 feet wider than what we're showing here. And so one of the benefits and results of changing the design by narrowing those lanes to 11 feet will slow vehicular traffic, which makes the street design safer for people driving their cars, for people biking, and for people walking along the sidewalks and crossing the streets. So slowing the speed of cars moving is safer for everyone involved in using the street. And so that's a really big change. The 17-foot wide median will stay the same. That large width is needed to allow for large semi trucks to make turning movements to access the business and other industrial locations along the corridor. So that will stay the same, but the overall width only goes up by about 6 feet. So that's 3 feet on either side of the street that will be needed as the project gets implemented. And this is what it'll look like. Similar perspective view. This is Herb Seafood. So we're just looking north from Maywood Avenue. Separated sidewalk, separated bicycle lane. You see those buffers. It's all above the curb here, and the median in the middle there, planted in 3 travel lanes in each direction. And then we have another poll. You should see it pop up in a minute. It's the same question we asked before. How well do you think this design advances the community's goals and preferences for the study area? So we'll leave this up for a minute or so and let folks respond to the question. So we got 3 people so far, 4. Last time we had 10 or 12, I believe. So see if we can get back there. So 9 folks, 10 folks so far, 11, 12. Lucky number 13. There we go. All right, 14 people. Go ahead and end the poll. So 11 of 14 said yes. So thank you for that feedback. We'll look at the last streetscape design, and this is on Hammell Street. And Hammell Street is right here. So this is Lake Wheeler Road. This is South Saunders Street. Hammell connects them right here. So you see Dix Park and Fuller Heights. And this is getting closer into downtown up here. So Hammell today is a gravel road. And it connects South Saunders to Lake Wheeler, which is right here. And so what is currently planned and under review on a couple of sides of this property is requests and developments for pretty tall urban development. And what we've done is included a custom streetscape design for that area as well. And so it defines 2 11-foot travel lanes, a 10-foot sidewalk on each side of the street, 6.5-foot wide planting strips. They're not green like the other ones. You'll see these are likely to be like a more urban type of planting well or sidewalk like you'd see in a downtown area. When you walk and you see a grate that the tree is planted in. So that really just kind of expands a lot of that pedestrian walking space. There's a real extension of that public amenity. 6-foot bicycle travel lanes on each side of the street and a 3-foot separation there. Overall length of that street section is 73 feet. And this is what that might look like in the future on Hammell Drive, similar to our other perspectives, sidewalks. You can see that that buffer area where you have trees and grates, and then bicycle lanes in each direction, and sidewalks in 2 lanes for vehicle traffic. And we've got another poll. If you can pull that up for us, Sarah. Last one before we move on to the next section. How do you feel that the streetscape design supports the community's vision for the project area? We've got 8 people so far. 11, 12, 13. All right, 14, there we go. So 12 of 14 people answered yes. Thanks for your feedback. Sarah?
All right, so this part I'm going to kick over to Deirdre. She's going to lead us through a little group discussion. So if you, perfect, yeah, and Deirdre will share her screen just a second. And we wanted to give a little more opportunity to talk about, so the designs we just used, ask folks, you know, oh, sorry, I won't talk for Deirdre. I will let her do the explaining. But yeah, we want to have a group activity here. So we're going to spend maybe about 15, 20 minutes or so just having a general discussion. We have a couple questions and I'll let Deirdre lead you through that. And again, no breakout rooms. We're all just going to stay one big group. So folks are welcome to, you can put things in the chat. You can unmute yourself, and I'll kick it over to you, Deirdre.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. So we just want to get some of your thoughts today. I'm going to be typing up notes as you kind of give your feedback. If you see anything that you're like, that's not quite right, I really meant this, please let me know, I'll correct it. So the first question here is, do you feel that the recommendations we showed support the goals we established earlier in the project to make it safer for people on foot and bikes? Please feel free to raise your hand. I'm sure one of the city staff can unmute you, or you can type in the chat box.
Anybody? I'm not seeing any hands in the chat. We'd love to get your feedback here if you have any.
Or if folks need a little bit more of a specific question, I think what helps us the most is, are there details in what we showed you that either you think we did a good job on, or maybe that we didn't? Like, that's really where I think it helps us understand, okay, what we're doing makes sense for the community, or what we're doing does not make sense for the community. Like, sometimes, the details are really what help us. Or if folks don't have any comments, that's cool too.
We can also kind of skip over to the second question. Do you have any concerns about the designs? I know that we had some people answer no on the polls. And so if there are any specific things that you were like, I didn't really like this, or it didn't really support what I thought we needed, then we'd love to hear about those design concerns. I'll show you the third question too. Did we miss anything? So any of those three questions, please feel free. I think we just got someone in the chat. So it depends on speed limit with fast traffic, cars are close to pedestrians.
Okay, was that for question, okay, number 2? That makes sense. Thank you, Sarah. We appreciate that comment and that feedback.
Do we know what the speed limits are?
Yes. Fontaine or Cliff, can you fill in? We got some more questions. April Shu says, I asked the question about Lake Wheeler being 2 lanes. I'm a little worried about the expansion of Dix and if it will be congested. Yes, so that's a great comment. We appreciate that. There's a balance here of trying to, or actually I see Fontaine's hand up. Fontaine, do you want to?
Well, I was actually going to apologize. I lost connection for a minute, so I missed the question, but jumped back in and heard my name.
Yeah, the question was, I asked a question about Lake Wheeler. This is from April Shu, says, I asked a question about Lake Wheeler being 2 lanes. I'm a little worried about the expansion of Dix and if it will be congested.
So there may be an increase in the number of cars that we see and some increase in traffic, because currently there are not a lot of destinations along Lake Wheeler. But there is a trade-off of widening the road to allow for fast through car movements and balancing bicycle and pedestrians. And so part of that balance is looking at, do we prioritize cars or do we prioritize bike and peds? Cars will likely move slower through here, but that's part of the design in order to make it safer for bicycle and pedestrians. For those who have been using Lake Wheeler to get to I-40, we may over time, or likely will over time, see a change in their travel patterns using other roads as an alternative to avoid Lake Wheeler. So there's are some trade-offs there, but with the goals of this study and the goals of the community, we felt like keeping it a 2-lane road was the best option for this area and for the land uses planned here.
Thanks for that, Fontaine. I'm just going to read through a couple more comments. William Gilmore said, I think the designs are implementing the complete streets process that encourages bike ped, landscaping, and traffic calming. This is all good for our city. Thanks, William. Jeff Moore, will South Saunders Street be realigned at the intersection with Lake Wheeler Road to make Lake Wheeler the through movement? Fontaine, do you want to?
Yes, there are plans and we are working through that potential realignment. There is a realignment identified in our street plan with the current development that is happening there with Park C South, and with this project, we are exploring ways to include that realignment as part of the design. It's still kind of up in the air on how that would be done. Would it be done with the development, or would it be done with the larger Lake Wheeler project?
Thanks, Fontaine. Charles Cox asks, any discussion on on-street parking for Lake Wheeler Road? So, yeah, I think, and Fontaine, feel free to jump in. Looking again at kind of the goals of the study area, providing priority and access to other transportation users beside drivers to the park, increasing walkability, increasing pedestrian safety, increasing bicycle access, and making it easier just to cross Lake Wheeler Road. Adding a lane of parking along the park or along the Fuller Heights side of the property would work against that goal. So that is it is a trade-off about you know, a certain number of vehicular parking spaces accessed right there on the front of the park. But we think, go ahead.
Matt, I'll also just add in that while we're taking space, the right of way, our goal is to take right of way space from the park side. We are also working with power lines, that large power lines and transmission lines that need to be moved. Adding in, finding the space for parking would likely detract from the bicycle and ped space. So that was a trade-off that we looked at and ultimately made the decision to prioritize bike and pets, as Matt had mentioned.
Thanks, Fontaine. Sarah Reeves says, on the gravel street on Hammell Street, you mentioned tall buildings. The rendering shows existing low buildings. With tall or even mid-rise, trees are in wind tunnels. Their performance for canopy or health is limited. Grades are expensive, can be trip hazards, are high maintenance, and don't have benefits of ground cover for tree root and overall health. So thanks for that comment, Sarah. We'll make sure to capture that. All right, anything else? Any other hands, comments, or questions? And if you're still digesting this information and want more time to think about it, you can also provide feedback and comments in the survey at a later time. So this isn't your only chance. So don't feel like you have to get it all out right now. We'll be taking these comments for some time. Sarah, how long is the survey open?
Till mid-September. We got a little bit of time, but would love y'all to take it sooner rather than later.
All right. Any last thoughts from anyone before we move on? Are we good here, Sarah, or what? Okay.
Yep, perfect. This will leave a little more time if we have questions at the end. So it's perfect. Yeah, thanks y'all. Thanks for feedback.
Yeah. And Deidre, if you can stop sharing your screen, I'll start sharing mine again. Thanks. Okay. Okay, so that was our group discussion. We're going to look through a series of maps here next. The first set are transit amenities and transit recommendations coming out of the study. So here's the study area again. This is the farmers market in Dix Park. This is Fuller Heights. This is Raleigh. We have Maywood Avenue crossing the study area here. This is South Saunders Street and Lake Wheeler Road. And here's 440 down here. So this is a map of citing all of the bus stops in the study area that have amenities today. These blue dots are bus stops with planned amenities. And these are existing bus stops without amenities. And these are existing sidewalk gaps that provide pedestrian access to those bus stops. So what we're going to do with the study is elevate bus stops without amenities and sidewalk gaps as recommendations for things that we can improve in the area, and also probably look at planned amenities and understand what their scheduling will be, and if there's any policy movement or something we can do to bring that forward sooner, we're going to look at that. So these are our transit amenity gaps. And these are transit recommendations that were made based on the feedback we got and working with our transit planners in the city with consultation services from RHI and Timmons. And in the short term, so within the decade, we're looking at this list of 5 things. I'm not going to read them all, but looking for capital improvements for additional funding, including some high visibility markings to increase safety, integrate those kind of micro mobility uses at stations, providing amenities like we showed on that map for bus stops that have high usage. And again, more prioritization for shelters and other amenities for that number 4. And then looking at BRT and fixed route transit stops to help connect these other transit services in the area. Long term, beyond that, in the next 20 years, looking at some two-way service for Route 21. Right now, it's I believe it's a one-way loop, which makes it can be challenging for folks coming and going with that bus service. Looking at new routes from downtown to Tryon and Lake Wheeler, and improving service south of 40. Looking at the feasibility of a new route to connect Southern and Western BRTs, which are both adjacent to the study area, one through and one adjacent to the study area. And then looking at any private shuttle services that other private partners may provide or have interest in. And so this is kind of the transit recommendation package for the study. This next map or next series of maps is a combination of survey responses. So we've had activities where people will mark maps up or show locations on maps. People at participants at in-person workshops, we worked with drawing and marking up maps. So we wanted to put all of the transportation planning that is happening in the study area in one place, and that's what we're going to look at now. So we're going to look at our current planned transportation projects. So these are Dix Edge Streetscape projects that we looked at the beginning of the presentation. This is Lake Wheeler Road, this is Hammell Drive, and this is South Saunders. So those are streetscape planning and design that we've done through this study. Excuse me. These blue lines are developer required projects. So there's some developments that are happening here, and these connections are being made and improvements are being made by private developers. These are existing bike ped projects. So it's Carolina Pines, this is Maywood, South Saunders into town, this is Western Boulevard, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and this is Fayetteville Street here, or I'm sorry, that's South Wilmington. Excuse me. Existing Greenway Trail. So this is Walnut Creek coming through the study area, and then we have proposed Greenway trails. So I wanted to show that network there. So this is so these are all projects that are currently planned. And these Greenway trails are ones that we are proposing through the Dix Edge study. So based on survey responses, this is what we heard from participants about improvements that they wanted to see. So we heard that we want bicycle and pedestrian connections along Lake Wheeler Road here. And this is Grissom, a long connection along Maywood Avenue, this is Mercury actually, and then a connection over to the other side study area, South Saunders. This is Fayetteville, and then a connection here on there, not streets there currently. We also heard for better crossings and connections in these areas at some of these critical intersections where people thought it wasn't currently safe to be crossing on bike or foot. So here, all that is together. So planned, streetscape, development required projects, existing bike ped, existing greenway, and then greenway planning that we're doing through the study. And then what we heard in the survey responses for bike and pedestrian connections and better crossings. So here it all is together. And so where the gaps are and what we can elevate through this planning process are these connections in green. So these are areas where there isn't existing planning going on, or that haven't already been addressed by some recommendations of the study that we can bring forward and elevate in the final recommendation package to improve transportation in the Dix Edge area. And that's what we have there. We just have a few more slides left and we can have some discussion at the end of the presentation, but there are a couple of other related projects in the area. The first one we'll talk about is the Centennial realignment. So this is not a city project. This is an NCDOT project to realign Lake Wheeler Road here at the farmers market. Just wanted to bring this forward. You know, when we have these meetings and we have these conversations, people always say, well, are you talking to so-and-so about this other project that's going on? And, you know, we just want to be real clear that we are having those conversations when we are having those conversations. And so this is a project for realigning Centennial Parkway. So we're looking at the farmers market right here. And you can see Dix Park up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Healing transitions right here along Lake Wheeler Road. You can see I-40, and then Centennial Parkway comes in to Lake Wheeler Road, and this is Maywood Avenue. And so this is a proposed realignment of Centennial Parkway, bringing it around to Lake Wheeler Road. And then Lake Wheeler will come and create a T intersection here at Centennial. And then there'll be a new access street to provide access to the existing businesses that exist here. So just to put on everyone's radar, we're here talking about transportation in the area. This is not something that necessarily the city will, or this process or the Dix Edge study will have any impact on, but really just kind of bring this to everyone's attention of other transportation related changes that will probably happen.
Matt, if I add, so just a tiny bit more background on this one. This design was something that the North Carolina Department of Transportation, or NCDOT, our friends over at the state had explored. And the reason we're bringing it to you is because the city of Raleigh is not recommending that this design be adopted into our street plan. And I might defer to Fontaine if folks want to ask more details on that, but we wanted to show you the city is bringing forward a recommendation to not adopt this design, mostly because it will not make things better it will not improve traffic based on the analysis that Cliff did, and it will not improve bike or ped connectivity in the area. So we just didn't see a benefit, but wanted to show folks, since it's part of a public process, to make sure everyone was aware of recommendations the city are making.
And I will also add that we've shared that recommendation with NCDOT, and they are in support of that recommendation. So at the moment, there is no plan on either the city side or NCDOT side to move this forward.
All right. And then the last piece we'll look at is one of the first phases of implementation of the Dix Park master plan, and that's the Dix Park Plaza and Play. So here we are looking at Dix Park to the north. This is Lake Wheeler Road. This is Fuller Heights to the south, and this is the farmers market down here in the lower left-hand corner. And so part of the first phase of implementation is Plaza and Play. It's a playground, gathering area, and other park amenities, generally kind of in this location of the park fronting on Lake Wheeler Road. Just some renderings from some design work that they did showing what that front park edge will look like. You can see homes across the street in Fuller Heights. And this is kind of looking into the park and just the overall design here. So Lake Wheeler Road on the south. And for those asking about parking along Lake Wheeler Road, there is planned parking inside of the park to facilitate folks getting there by car. And that's all we have today. We can open up for a Q&A. Sarah, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to say before moving on.
Oh, I'd just say our colleague Grayson Mon also joined us. She's the project manager for the Dix Park project in play. And we wanted her to be here so that you could have all the folks who would be managing anything construction related together and in front of you. So first of all, just so you all know that we talk to each other and that we're a coordinated front. And also just if you have questions for any of them, they're here for you. So that, yeah, just want to make sure folks know that Grayson was here as well as Fontaine and Brian to be good resources.
Thanks, Sarah and Matt.
We may
All right.
wrap early unless, yeah, folks had questions or wanted to talk through anything further.
Yeah, we've got another half an hour or something that we scheduled for time. Don't need to use that whole time if folks don't want to stick around. We are here to answer your questions, but if you're done with us tonight, we will also invite you to leave. But we can go back through any of those slides if you would like to. You can let us know. Just, we're here if you want to put anything in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself or raise your hand.
There was one comment in the chat box that just said, thanks for sharing the larger DOT plan. Helpful to know things are connected.
Yeah, you're welcome, Laura.
Sarah, this is a general question, Sarah Ellis. You may have said at the beginning, I may have missed it. How did Saturday go at Eliza Park?
Oh, thanks for asking, Sarah. No, we didn't mention. So just for folks that don't know, we had a community gathering at Eliza Pool on Saturday. I don't know if, I know at least one of y'all was, I know Danica was there. I think it was lovely. I might ask Matt to share what he thought too. My goal was that we ran out of hot dogs, and we did. Everyone ate the hot dogs, and I'm very happy about that. But we had a nice turnout. Some folks got to try citric cycles and scooters for the first time. They also learned about the Dix Edge Area Study, but we had some friends from other departments out there just to make it an event where you could learn from more than just us, and also so you could get all the free goodies from all the departments. But we had a great time with y'all. I think it was, yeah, thanks for asking, Sarah.
See, Fontaine's got her hand up. There's a direct question in the chat. It says, interested more in why the City of Raleigh is not in favor of the NCDOT Centennial Parkway realignment.
Yes, that was why I had my hand up. I was going to answer that. So Timmons, Cliff and his group, the consultants, did a traffic analysis for us on that realignment compared to the existing realignment. And what it actually showed is it would decrease the level of service overall at the intersections, which means they would make the intersections less efficient. And we also was weighing that realignment with the people that we've heard from south of I-40 who have expressed interest and frustration with lack of pedestrian and bike access along Lake Wheeler and to downtown, and that realignment would actually make it more challenging and they would have to deviate more to